You've probably reached a point in a diet where you're still tracking your food, still training, doing the cardio, checking the boxes, but you're staring at it all, wondering how you can be doing all of the same things that used to work before when you locked in. Yeah, your body isn't responding the way it used to. You may even be pushing harder now, but it just feels like it's all push and no shove. Your results have slowed, hunger, food focus have gone up, training feels harder, your energy sucks, your motivation is honestly getting lost with that too. I know when my training sucks and I feel like bleh, I start to lose all motivation. This is where the spiral begins because it does for most people. You don't know what the heck you are supposed to change. The most frustrating part is the very fact that you've done this before. You used to clean things up and pull your calories back, add in some cardio, and boom, your body responded. It seemed so easy to just do these small things and have a response. Now it feels like you're doing more and you're just getting less back. So the question isn't simply, what am I doing wrong? I think a better question to ask is, are you trying to get the same result from the same process when all of this is now existing in an entirely different context and situation? Because the same calories are not automatically the same deficit forever, even the same maintenance forever. But a coexisting truth with that is that this whole metabolic adaptation thing, it isn't what we are made to believe it is. Yes, it is not your metabolism breaking. It's not starvation mode, metabolic damage, or any part of that. But it's also not this big, unavoidable thing that you're just doomed to. You can mitigate it. There are ways to work around it because it kind of sucks when you feel like 1400 calories now stops working and you need to eat even less, do even more. I'll admit, I used to believe the same thing. If you slash your calories all the way and add in a heap of cardio off the bat, okay, well, now you're left with nowhere to move. You're just going to have to keep adding in more and cutting more food back. What's there left to cut from? But that's not simply the way that metabolism works. You're gonna adapt, yes, but it is to the degree of freaking apple, an apple in maximum terms. It's all. It's not as simple as just the calories that you eat. That's what I want to break down because it's so confusing. It's such a complex system. Metabolism, it's about this whole living, breathing human, that's you, that is inside of the diet who is changing your body size, your movement, your training output. How are you training? What's your training history? Your body composition, your appetite, your behavior, your beliefs. And more than anything, whatever it is that we're doing, you need to be able to consistently repeat the plan for the needed time span of that particular quote unquote phase, which there are only really two phases. There's the diet and there's outside of the diet. This whole episode is going to be me putting you, that living, breathing human, with all these changing variables back into the equation so you can understand how this whole thing works. So you can be the person who beats it, the person that the other person who doesn't know this stuff is asking, how is she able to make it look so easy when I'm the one struggling? Because you won't be. So, welcome back to 100% Real with Ruby. Today, I'm keeping it real about your metabolism. You're going to get a blueprint to set yourself up so that you aren't left in the diet purgatory that I'm guessing you're finding yourself in now, not sure what to do, not sure why you still don't look tight and toned and why your body doesn't respond like those do, and start seeing it happen. What I want to break down is what this whole metabolic adaptation thing means. Because when most people hear it, they reduce it down to one sentence. I'm eating less. My metabolism is slowing down with it. So I burn less calories. I'm doomed if I'm not losing on this. Does that mean now my deficit is my maintenance? I can't possibly eat more food because that will make me gain some if I'm not losing on this. Many women comment saying that if they eat over 1400, 1500 calories, that they just gain weight. This whole concept isn't completely false. It's painfully incomplete. Painfully incomplete. There is a lot more puzzle pieces to it, and it lacks a huge caveat that you can reverse that doom and that you can avoid it when dieting. But that's only once you understand the system in whole. Since forever, this whole 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional conversation is flattened into macro calculators, maths, arguments about whether somebody can lose on 1,200 calories. Then there's the voices fighting each other online that then say it's totally calories. Hormonal disaster. It's terrible for women. Menopause, cortisol. I mean, my God, I see why this whole thing is so confusing. It's everyone screaming the opposite. It can sound so true, but is it true for you in this very context? And as much as some things can sound like they're bedazzled in scientific jargon, a lot of the time they're just doing that to sound smart, and that makes it sound believable. But this whole thing is failing to explain the actual lived experience, which is that you can be logging what looks to be the same intake, what looks to be like you following the same plan, putting in the same effort, if not more. But we're missing the fact that the entire context around this plan has changed. It can change within the diet, and it can change from diet to diet. That is the most important thing to get clear on. The hardest complicated part is that there is not just one single thing happening there. And while I'll forever say that people are making it much more complicated than it needs to be, people are also, on the other hand, simplifying it too much and reducing it too much to it's as simple as calories in and calories out, which it's not, because it's losing the nuance that is you and your life, and how calories in impacts calories out and calories out impacts calories in, and how there's the past, present, and the future you to take into consideration. Because your diet history matters, your training history matters, your current body composition matters. I mean, you don't want to be the person that just gains more fat every single time you lose weight and regain weight, because that isn't the outcome we wanted. Yet it's the lived reality of most dieters. Your recovery, your movement, your appetite, and your responsibilities, your whole life matters if we want this thing to last. The basic, simple underlying principles never do disappear. They're the same for me, for Jane and Karen and Susan. Calories are gonna matter. Energy balance is still gonna matter. Both sides of that balance move and change, and they can affect each other. And that last part gets overlooked 99% of the time. The fact that they affect each other. Because once again, that's in more than one way. Fat loss isn't all about the calories you eat, should eat, or burnt in your training, or even your steps and cardio. You are not a spreadsheet or a lab rat in studies living in some metabolic chamber. You're a human who is influenced by all of the internal and external environmental factors. Internal factors being your mindset, sabotage, thoughts, stress, beliefs. Then there's the external environment, which plays a bigger role than we actually realize. We already know how powerful the internal environment can be, but you might not be aware just how powerful it can influence your fat loss results. And that's the woo woo part that isn't so woo woo once you see it in practice. But before we talk about hormones and starvation mode or metabolic damage, there is one crucial part that everybody forgets. If you lose weight, you are now maintaining and moving a smaller body. Moving a smaller body costs less energy than the larger version of you. Not metabolic damage, it's simply downsizing or shrinking or whatever you want to call it, but it's expected because you're smaller. Macro calculators are Boolean averages. And for the Boolean average person, they get things wrong more than they get things right. When they are right, that is only short lived. Because once again, the human changes, the context changes. And that's why things stop working. It's not you, it's MC. It sounds like me, but macro calculator. I'm funny, not really, but you know. The point is that the doesn't work to start with. But now it's shrunk to pretty much nothing because you're not really seeing anything now. So it feels like it's your maintenance. If you lost weight, there's less calorie cost. But that isn't the whole picture because that in itself does not make that big of a difference. Like I said, probably like 20, 30, 50 calories. That doesn't explain why results aren't moving. This is the part we can't neglect. Because if part of the weight you lost was muscle, you're going to be entering the next phase with less training capacity, less lean tissue, and less of the structure that you're actually wanting to reveal. But that's not even all because it's going to end up in you having a more dysregulated appetite. You're going to be hungrier. You're going to have more cravings. It's going to set you up for more belly fat gain over the long term. Plus, that's kind of what increases insulin resistance because muscle protects that. Your body wants to regain any lean muscle tissue it lost. The whole process is called collateral fattening, which is why you have such a drive of hunger once you finish dieting and why the next 2, 4 weeks after a diet are the most crucial to pay attention to. And that's usually where we let our foot off the gas because we pushed so hard in the diet. We didn't exit at the right time that now we're just had enough of focusing on it. Even more, that muscle and the ability to use carbs and fats like a powerhouse helps facilitate the higher capacity lifestyle that helps prevent this whole metabolic doom. Just the other week, I had a client return to me after finishing her uni studies, wanting to get back into it all, saying that she got a macro check and consult from this well known company that shall not be named. And they just said to cut first. I mean, what the hell was there to cut? Like, there's nothing of her. She just under muscled, skinny fat. Like, that she is slender, she's small, undertrained, not eating much because she's on a GLP-1. There is very little guidance given around how to create what you actually want in all of this, which is more than a short-term outcome. Going through the same metabolic adaptation doom, the same fat loss struggles, but I don't really think anybody wants to go through that grueling grind. I'm guessing most of you want what my client wants, and that's a tight, lean, built physique that doesn't have all of these extra flabby bits, if that's what you want to call it. Strong, capable. You actually feel confident that you can get results, that you can actually build the results that you want. So many of us have lost faith in ourselves because we're so used to our metabolism attacking back at us. We don't want to keep lying awake at night wishing for a better tomorrow and for things to just magically change. Yeah, okay, you can have a smaller body like she does with her GLP-1, but stuck, stagnated, not eating all that much, yet still stuck, not leaner and tighter. This is where we need to separate this predictable calorie cost of just getting smaller to building this lean physique to all the other adaptations happening around it that stop you from getting that result. And we need to start zooming into the importance of the main factors that build this metabolic engine that stop you falling into the same cycle. Because a deficit is not a magical fixed calorie number that gets slapped onto the top of a meal plan. It's the relationship between your internal and external environments influencing what comes in, what goes out, which all impact each other because it's all happening within your current body and your current lifestyle. That's why this whole thing feels so confusing because there's so many elements, especially when you used to be able to just clean up your food for a few weeks and boom, you lost weight. When you could just cut carbs back slightly and you immediately felt tighter. When you could up the cardio, go harder, the scale probably moved. And every time your scale moved, your body changed with that. It responded to 1,200 calories. It responded to even 1,500 calories. But now it's like, what the hell? Your body won't budge. So, of course, you keep returning to the same strategy because that worked before. But then when it stops working, that's when we start to question, what the hell do I do next? Calories in versus calorie out does still apply. Both sides can change, but we can't think that we know all of the things that are changing because most things that do, we aren't aware of. Your intake can change without feeling like it did. Your output can change without you deliberately choosing to move less. Your recovery changes. Your sleep changes. Your quality of your sleep. Your absolute training output can change. Even when effort feels like it's going at 100%, or when you even give it more. So when somebody says my deficit stopped working, we need to stop talking about just calories and macro checks. We need to stop arguing that people aren't tracking properly. We've been doing that for long enough, but it's not helpful, is it? The more useful thing here isn't even about calories at all. It's zooming in to what are we consciously aware of that's getting tracked and what's getting missed out. Let's deal with the food side first, and then we'll deal with the other aspects that can get a lot more complex. Because logging 1,200 calories does not mean that 1,200 calories is what you are repeating every single day. And it doesn't mean that you're lying about it. That argument doesn't help. Diet brain is real. And one thing I do know is that food noise becomes so much louder. It's so easy to just dismiss 50 calories here, half a cookie there, a little bit of your kids' leftovers. Maybe you stole a couple of your partner's chips or had just a teaspoon of dessert, a glass of wine, 50 calories, 20 calories, 80 calories. It's not much. Maybe you didn't measure something while you were cooking. Not much. It doesn't feel like it needs a dramatic decision, but they all add up. Oh, but that's obsessive. Well, it's not, especially when you have such a small pocket of calories to work with. Very small differences across the week can erase a small deficit, especially if you are a smaller female, shorter female, especially if you are over 40. And sometimes that is an inevitable part of aging because our maintenance and movement are things that we may not be aware of having changed because muscle does play a huge part. And that's something that gets lost by many who have been focused on fat loss their whole lives. And that's why this conversation is so important. Then there are meals out. They are harder to estimate than you realize. Something may say that it's 600 calories, but actually come out at double that calorie intake. Studies have proven that restaurant meals can be up to double the calories that they say on their website or on menus, or what you might even log as your guesstimate. So that gap between the intake that's in your app and what your body registers just keeps getting wider and wider. There are too many meals that can easily be underestimated. And if you keep eating such different things day to day, week to week, you're just increasing the room of error. That's why diet phases need to be treated with the respect that they deserve, because they should not be things that go on forever. They should be the shortest part of this. Make it effective so it doesn't feel like you're in this struggle your whole life. As I argued over the last two Fat Loss podcasts, it's why I challenge and hate the whole you need to do tiny little deficits to be sustainable. I would argue that if we keep losing that deficit and if it's dragging on forever and has you feeling like you're literally dieting forever without producing a meaningful result, how the hell is that sustainable? That's freaking frustrating. And self-belief diminishing. A diet, a proper effective fat loss phase, it cannot begin and end with a calorie drop. That's where people's plans fail before the diet even begins. It needs the setup, because if you always start with fat loss goals, then expect the same outcome, because that didn't work before. We're going to have to create a system that we can actually repeat, that we can actually set up so that the diet works as it should, which we'll get to. But now, the calories on the other side, the calories that are burnt. This part gets overlooked because we can easily track a workout and our steps. The workout is visible, but the movement you lose across the rest of the day, it hardly is. But we overlook the fact that we pace less, we sit down sooner, more often even, and we move less, we blink less. Our posture, our gestures, our fidgeting, none of that is a deliberate thing that we do. We don't just deliberately, I'm going to slouch, I'm going to blink less. Your body just does it because it's trying to save energy wherever it can. It's easier to turn up the volume on the workouts. It's easier to turn up the volume on cardio. That can actually worsen metabolic adaptation, putting all of our energy and stock into what we can track, going harder at our workouts, going harder at cardio. That's just going to demand more recovery outside of it. Our body's slugging more, trying to recuperate more, especially if we come from the camp that, oh, carbs are bad. Well, now your body isn't recovering as well as it should, because that's what carbs do kind of help with. It's just we need the right amount for your body. And that's also why just track your workouts or just hit your steps leaves out the whole picture, because yes, steps are useful, but they're still only one visible part of this whole movement spectrum. Then there is the fact that the work you do, the training you're doing, the steps you're doing, you become a lot more efficient at it. Your body gets better at doing the same work for less. It's not really a bad thing. It's just that we need to be aware of it so then we can work with it. In fact, changing things up to avoid our body getting better at things can also make this whole matter worse. There is a greater recovery cost. And if our body isn't able to recover, then it's not able to respond the way we want if we want to keep muscle. We're not able to repeat the same amount of effort repetitively over time if we are still recovering from the previous amount of effort. Adaptation, the body is responding to now reduced energy availability. So it is doing all it can to make everything that we do more efficient. Because if it's just going to take the same amount of energy to do that thing, then that's a threat to our survival. That's what we need to understand. And that's why we can't reduce our body to a spreadsheet, because not every person adapts the same way. Not every single person has the same experiences with dieting, can tolerate the same amount of effort or fatigue or recovery cost. Many of us have different levels of tolerance or different battery levels that we start the day with. There are also mechanisms that change how energy is handled inside muscle. There are two cases of this. Number one is, you know how you can get really cold when you're dieting, when you're losing body fat. Well, because your body is trying to save as much energy as it can, it stops wasting energy as heat. Everything you eat needs to be turned into something productive so that it actually can survive. It can do things. So why would it want to waste it as heat? That's just wasting valuable energy sources. But then we have to realize that's only a small part of the pie. That doesn't, like, in total, that's not really all that many calories, but it does add up. It adds up a shit ton over time. It's important to know about all of these parts. Another small part is the fact that your muscle fibers can change from type 2 to type 1 just because they're simply more efficient. This is just all to say that our body does crazy things to save energy. It gives us all these multiple changes on the output side without anybody consciously deciding to give up or to go slower. We can even go into how genetics do influence our ability to, well, our propensity to adapt hard or be more resilient to adapting, but just knowing that there are two different types of metabolic phenotypes, those that adapt hard and those that resist adaptation, is enough to get us going from here. Actually, I will give you an example though. If you don't relate to it, you'll know someone who does. And I'll talk about Adam because I remember when Adam was deep into his competition prep, he was sleeping on my shoulder. He was slugging around the gym. He wasn't walking between sets like the Adam that I knew. He was barely getting up off the machines. I do swear he fell asleep between one of his shoulder press sets, though. I swear I saw him almost snore off. He was practically sleeping whenever he got a chance. Like he stole naps here and there. He told me how zapped he was during his workouts, even though his coach programmed him to do half the sets, to do his working sets at 80% of his usual intensity. And he also still said that it felt like he was giving his all. He's 100%. Like, yeah, okay, in absolute sense, it felt like it was 100% because it was 100% of what he had available at that point. But what he had available was no longer the same. And this is the very thing that gets missed in diet terms and in training terms, because you can always feel like you're giving just as much effort, sometimes even more, but in the absolute sense, bring all of the feelings out of it, the emotional attachment out of it. We have a lot of those when we're putting in such hard effort. The rationale and the logic, when we're looking at what we're actually producing out of it, it's less. We are so emotionally invested into this and we're putting in so much effort. Just like I mentioned about the calorie leak as heat, he was someone who used to wear short sleeves and shorts all the time. It was the middle of spring going into summer, and he was wearing long sleeve jumpers and long pants and cold. So, yes, while the calories in your tracking app are visible and the workout and the cardio that you log are visible, the steps you might even track, that is all easy to see, to collect the data. But what about everything happening around them that you don't see? That we don't even think about, let alone even consider to track. And it's not really something you can track, just to be aware of. I mean, your appetite, it's a huge part of the equation. Like the smaller reductions in output matter a lot, especially if you are a smaller or shorter female. But even then, it, without a doubt, is nothing in comparison to the impact of what happens with food. I mentioned how dysregulated your appetite gets, the increase in your food noise, the hunger, the cravings. Food suddenly looks like sex on a plate. You think about dinner during breakfast. You calculate the rest of the day's meals before you even finish the first one. You lie in bed thinking about tomorrow's food. And the same meal can feel less filling. Cravings change, your attention changes. You practically hear food. You smell it through your phone screen as you're scrolling. You know that meme with the pink donut with the sprinkles? And then there's Homer Simpson just drooling at it? Donut. That's why it's not fair to reduce this all down to discipline and willpower, especially when your body biologically is set up to keep the human specimen, which is you, surviving. The human again, you, is being asked to keep giving the same amount of effort to movement, to training, to recovery, to adherence. It's at a completely different food environment with all of the deliciousness and with this, like, you're in an you're in such a lower hormonal state. That's just making something that's already difficult more difficult. But in saying that, we also have to look at the plan you're being asked to follow or the plan that you're forcing yourself to follow. Is it realistic? Is it properly built for your current body, goal, and life? Does it have an after plan? There is a deeper element to all of this. I mentioned it at the beginning. I think it should be one of the first things to address before starting a diet, and that's your mindset, your psychology, because you can actually believe yourself into complete quote unquote metabolic adaptation. You can believe yourself into not being able to lose weight anymore. And I know that sounds woo woo because I almost think it's too ridiculous to friggin' believe. But have you heard of the milkshake study? Because the 2011 milkshake study, Mind Over Milkshakes, it gave the participants the same 380 calorie milkshake. One was described as indulgent, the other was a Sensi shake. It was guilt free. That was enough to change their behaviors. Both the milkshakes, exactly the same calories, but those that were having the diet shake, they ate, well, first of all, they slurped the whole milkshake up within friggin' seconds. And then they ate even more calories at the next meal and the rest of the day. They didn't get the same satisfaction, the same satiation, fullness signals from the shake. Whereas those that thought of it as indulgent, they didn't even finish the milkshake. And they didn't eat the next meal until much longer after. They didn't eat as many calories at that meal or for the rest of the day. So how you perceive the diet, how you perceive the food that you're eating, the way you approach it matters so much more than we realize. That sounds crazy at surface level, but I've seen it so many times in my own clients. There are so many other studies that show something similar, like the hotel cleaners. Those that were told that what they were doing with their work, their daily cleaning duties, were actually meeting the requirements for it to lead to beneficial health effects. They then went on to see their physiological markers like their blood pressure, resting heart rate, blood glucose, all of those factors improved just from being told that everything that they're doing is tracking up to hit the daily requirements for exercise. They also lost fat just by being told that. Their body composition improved. The control group that weren't told anything, nothing really changed except it gradually got worse with the natural course of age. This is why our beliefs matter so much more than we realize. What we tell ourselves, the stories. And there are so many other studies that show the power of psychology because the expectation effect is a real thing. There's even a book on the expectation effect. Now, we aren't going to be playing Pokemon and collecting more and more specific names and name shaming more hormones, getting all Pokemon-y, collecting scientific jargon. Although I will say that Pokemon Go, that was such a great game and such a great psychological trick to get more people more active without it even seeming like this huge ass effort. Anyway, I digress. Enough Pokemon. The point being that psychology and physiology, they feed each other and you can't separate them. They help you or they hinder you. There is a massive difference between a woman whose whole focus is dieting and a woman who has built a runway of training, of performance, of recovery before she even enters a fat loss phase. And then there's a person who does an ab check every morning, lifts her shirt at the gym to say, oh, has it worked yet? Takes progress photos every single week, obsesses over whether it's changed or hasn't changed, whether she still has fat here, feels fluffy there, who weighs in every morning, lets that dictate the day. Every plateau is this huge catastrophe. Success is how much you change in a tiny period of time. And if nothing changes, it's I need to try harder. It's not working. I need to change something. That isn't a mindset that allows you to actually thrive. That feels so like shrinking. And that change, like all this really does change the results and your experience of the diet dramatically. Your experience of this whole process. Are you going to teach your body to keep dieting and regaining and dieting and regaining the same weight? Although mostly fat is being gained and mostly muscle is being dieted off. You're struggling all the same, if not more, with every approach. Or do you want to actually teach your body how to produce more force, tolerate more work, recover better, and improve your aerobic capacity, improve your training capacity so that you can have this huge metabolic engine? Because I know what my choice is. And that's why this whole thing changes the entire question of this metabolism fat loss thing completely. Because training, how you train, your entire training mindset, overlooking that is your greatest detriment because just focusing on the fat loss side is what is going to continue making it harder. Because a trained person can tolerate more productive training, more absolute load. They get more quality work, preserve more lean tissue during dieting. No, this does not mean you turn into a magic calorie burning furnace, but the way that you then show up changes. The way your body holds onto muscle, the way that your body transforms changes. Because an under muscled woman who diets loses a significantly different proportion than the well trained woman who diets. The well trained woman holds onto more muscle, more metabolism, more energy throughout the day. You have more capacity all around. So you'll have more left over. You can still be showing up the same for your sessions, still be showing up the same for your days, but it doesn't guarantee that you're producing or recovering from the same training or giving the same to the rest of the day. Even though you're physically attending the training sessions and physically present in your life, it doesn't make the tangibles, the actual absolutes, the same. If dieting progressively strips away at your capacity to train effectively, you're not only making the deficit harder to sustain, but you're compromising the very results that you want and the very thing that protects the physique that you're even trying to diet into. So, how can we protect this phase? What do we protect? First, we want to train hard enough to keep a real enough stimulus. We want to recover just as hard to keep reducing it. The keep reducing it is the most important point. Your training may need to change during a deficit if you're not recovering. We don't want to abandon intensity here or turn every session into just easy movement because don't forget, you want to keep muscle. But we do need to manage volume and we need to manage recovery. We need to keep an eye on that. We can't just set it and forget it. We need to continue giving muscle a reason to stay, which brings me to the second point, which is getting in more protein. And that's why I get iffy when people say you don't technically need to eat that much protein. You can get away with less. Like, no, when you're dieting, protein doesn't just help with muscle retention. It's the best at supporting fullness, satiety, muscle retention, yes, but during a deficit, even more so because your muscle protein synthesis, the balance between them is even less. This is where my recommendation shifts to okay, yeah, we want 2 grams per kilogram of body weight, but you can shift that even higher. I would say 2.2, 2.4 if you can, if it fits within your calorie allowance, which is what's going to bring me to the third. But you do not want your protein to take away from the carbs that are going to help with recovery. They're going to keep your energy there. It's what's going to help with the fuel, help with your overall energy. But back to what I was saying about movement, you want to protect that because that will allow you to diet on more calories, but you don't want it to come at the cost of your training. So protect the movement, walk, move around, take the stairs, but be wary of what movement takes away or keeps neutral your recovery. The number that you can track doesn't capture every gesture, posture, shift, or incidental movement you're not aware of. So do be aware of that. Don't let dieting keep you still. And fourth, not finally, there is two more. You want to plan food in a way that reduces decision fatigue. The best way to smash through a diet without it leading to adaptation and all of this mental focus on food, don't forget that psychology part, is to plan your food ahead and to just have the same repetitive system in a fat loss phase. Get in and out. It doesn't have to be boring. It just needs to remove the constant decisions you need to make, the constant uncertainty of what's the next meal, what happens if I get trapped here. And you want to plan it in a way that does protect your training and recovery. Make sure you have enough whole foods in there and don't slack on your carbs. You want to put them in the right places of the day. You don't want to free willy-nilly your carbs throughout the day when your sleeping is trash. You want to protect that. Carbs before bed are a great place to put them. It definitely helps one of my clients go through an aggressive fat loss phase with her sleep intact, with hunger even intact, because we made the right changes to what she was eating, not just her numbers. And please, please do not just say, let's increase cardio because you're starting a diet. Remember that everything you do has a recovery cost. Use it as a tool because your training needs the most focus. Otherwise, there's a huge issue. We need to keep training at a level that does create that stimulus, like I said, because we don't want to abandon it just because it's harder. Second last point, you can't afford to treat sleep as a luxury. It's part of how you function. It's what's going to allow you to stick to the diet. Those that sleep less are likely to lose more muscle because less sleep impacts more than just energy. It impacts insulin sensitivity. It impacts how your body tolerates glucose, your energy levels through the day, your performance in the gym, how you recover. The last point is build and exit into the next phase. Know what comes next. Your body is going to be in a heightened state of hunger. So you just finished the diet and your hormones haven't yet upregulated. A deficit with no exit isn't even a phase. It's not eat smart. It's just, oh, I just decided to slash my calories. Because fat loss inevitably comes with a runway to and a road out. We don't want the deficit to become our lifestyle. So to bring all of this together, weight loss resistance, fat loss resistance, it's very real, but it has nothing to do with your body betraying you. Your system is adapted to what you've been repeatedly giving it. Some changes are going to be expected because you're now a smaller body. Also happen through movement, appetite, recovery, training capacity, things you aren't even aware of. But now, after listening to this episode, you have the chance to be. I'm hoping you see just how important it is to be aware of just how much your beliefs, your psychology, the stories you tell yourself, continuing to create the same past failures, same mistakes, same struggles, that's just eating at your self belief and going to make that cycle perpetually worse. So the way out of this is not more of the same thing. It's not more restriction. It's not more of what leads to more of the same. I feel like a failure. It's understanding what actually changed across the whole system, protecting muscle with real training and enough protein. It's doing all of what I just mentioned. This fat loss can reveal what is there, actually want what is built, meaning you need to have actually built something. You need to have put in the dedicated time into the right thing that actually build it. The part nearly everyone misses, or at least think they're doing it right. We become so emotionally attached to hard effort. This is the part where it gets to show itself, and yet it nearly never does because we're still feeling like we have that last bit of fat to lose and we're never really seeing what we want to see. And that all comes down to training. All comes down to training. All of this loss without the building part, without the preparation that needs to happen before the diet. Well, what are you hoping to see? Why are we even dieting? What do you want to see? Just a smaller calorie intake that has you struggling to live a normal life without then gaining more and more back every single time you want to have something that tastes delicious. Because when your training performance improves, your energy improves, routines become easier. You're not as obsessed with food, as obsessed with calorie this, cutting calories and diets. When you understand what a diet is actually for, which is losing fat, and I would hope without struggling, knowing that it's not something you should be staying in forever and that needs a proper plan, then that's when you can get in, get results, avoid this metabolic fuckery, and you can get back to building the body that you're trying to rebuild. Because when you can do that, everything else becomes that much easier. And dieting stops becoming this identity, this thing that you're doing your whole life. So perhaps the better question is not always, how can I force more fat loss out of your body? What have I spent the last year teaching my body to adapt to, past however many years? Because if your next diet begins where this last one, which was a shit show, leaves you, you're kind of in a worse place. You don't want that, and I definitely don't want that for you. The human body is adapting to the chronic restriction. It's getting better at surviving on less. So why are we still trying to center our entire solution around trying to make it live on less, continuing to aim for the same target that clearly isn't giving us what we want as a reward, lack of reward? This is why training and understanding what it can do for you, it changes the whole game and it gives you another direction to adapt. This is what my coaching philosophy is all about. It's a full transformation, one that you can own with confidence. And that's what I'm going to be going deeper into in the next episode. Because you can't out diet a sedentary lifestyle and you can't diet your way into a chiseled physique, into the adaptations only training can make. So before you go, I have to stop you because I want to know what hit you the hardest in this whole episode. Anything resonated with the way that you experience things? I really do want to know. Please send it to me on Instagram, what landed. If you're sitting there thinking that it does explain you and you still don't know what you want to do next or what to even start with, message me and tell me where you feel stuck. It's helping women through this crappy part, working out your next move without this continual panic and stress and freaking out and I guess feeling completely defeated. That's what I do. It's what I love doing. It's what I help many women with, untangle all of the mess inside of your head and start to make it make sense to you. So please do reach out to me on Instagram. I'm TransformXRuby. Just shoot me a message. I don't bite. I'll reply to you. And it will also mean the world to me if you send this along to a friend who you know is struggling with something similar, if you think it will make an impact. Because I'm sick of women blaming themselves when they're trying everything that they've been told to, or when they're falling for the next quick fix that some hooligan on social media is just handing out there to make some cash. The old strategy is going to stop working if it was never built off a solid plan to start with, if it was never built for the changing human body, the changing human being that you are. All that being said, I'll catch you in the next episode, and I hope this helped. Love you!